second thing is they needed to set up law enforcement to, make sure the rules were followed. Well, what were the people that filled those professions? It was the Irish. And they were the ones that were the low people on the totem pole before the Italians came in. So it's all what happened. And to my family, and my grandfather schooled me in this, to my family it was a business. And they were very proud that they did everything that they could to find top quality alcohol. I mean, people were making alcohol back then that killed people. It made them blind. Just to get the money. But my family was not like that. They prided themselves into, just providing top quality alcohol. And of course, one of those byproducts is Templeton Rye, and that is why you are here today. Templeton Rye was the rye whiskey of choice for my family for their own consumption. They would tell me that it was the good stuff, but it was made in 2 small batches. They couldn't provide it to everybody out there. And my family was only involved in 3 businesses. And one was gambling, one was alcohol, the other was prostitution. All of those are legal somewhere today. But a side note, my grandfather and Al lobbied the Nevada State Legislature to legalize gambling, prostitution, and alcohol, because they knew it would bring people in there and would turn a desert into a city. And it did, didn't it? And my grandfather owned the first upscale casino in Las Vegas way before Bugsy Siegel ever did. So the Capones were there first. But I appreciate right now the support that I'm getting from people like you. It's been a very difficult journey, as Lorca knows, for me. Many tears were shed. It took me about 3 years to write the book, and it was at the urging of my children. Because my kids would see derogatory remarks about Al Capone or Ralph Capone, and of course that DNA is surging in their bodies, just like it is in mine. And so they wanted me to tell the world there is a human being by the name of Capone. There is a family by the name of Capone, and we really are a good family. I have 4 children. I've been married to the same man for 49 years. I've known him for 55 years. And I've got 14 grandchildren. I was raised, nobody has had anything more than a speeding ticket. I mean, go ahead and Google me, you won't find anything. But, I just want people to know that, was Al Capone a mobster? Yes, he was. Was he a monster? No, he was not. He was a man of the times. He provided a service, and he couldn't understand why some people were after him. He once turned to the media and said, you guys would blame me for the Chicago fire if you could. But it was a concentrated effort by 6 businessmen in Chicago to put him out of business. 2 reasons. Number 1, he knew names. He knew the people that were corrupting government. And he was planning to run for mayor of Chicago, and he would have won hands down. And he would have put those people out of business. Number 2, they were Italian. And Italians at that point in our time were not supposed to be people of power and people of money. So I try to tell my Italian Goombas, Al Capone and Ralph Capone were the first Italian millionaires in the United States of America. So I think you should be proud of them. But I'm here, I'll answer any questions. Anybody want to ask a question now? I don't bite.
Are you stage fright? Would you like to sing one of the Neapolitan songs?
You quit! I held a Tommy gun for you. When I was a little girl, I was picking dandelions with my grandmother, Al's mother. And after we picked dandelions, she was sitting on this bench, and Al was sitting next to her. And I wanted to climb this tree, so I asked if I could climb this apple tree, which I did. And they said, be careful. But I climbed the tree, well, I fell out backwards. And it was the first time in my life that I had the wind knocked out of me. You've all had that happen to you, you know how scary that is? And I couldn't breathe. Well, Al picked me up and put me over his shoulder and patted me. I could still feel his muscles. and patted me until I got the air back again. Then he took me upstairs to his quarters up in the upper floor. He took out this instrument, and I now know it's a mandolin, and he started playing a song for me, and I'm going to botch it up. You know, I'm going to botch it up. Shababa, shawawa, shamama, in Kalana, Kukalagoomba. Shababa, shawawa, shamama, my bambino, go to sleep. All the stars are in the sky, ready to say goodnight. And I know my baby's sleepy too. Close your little drowsy eyes. Mama will say goodnight. No, he said, Al will say goodnight. He thinks for Papa. As I sing this lullaby to you, Shababa, shawawa, shamama, in Kalana, Kukalagoomba. You know this one? Shababa, shawawa, shamama, my bambino, go to sleep. That's what Al Capone talks about.
Now,
I had a question.
Okay.
Al Capone had a pretty nice house down in Florida. Whatever happened to it?
Say that again.
Al Capone had a pretty nice house in Florida that he stayed at. What happened to it? Is it still in the family?
It's still there. It's in terrible shambles. The man that owns it right now really would like to sell it. I would like to buy it, but the place that it's in is on Palm Island. Florida has set some kind of a rule in that part of the state that you cannot tear a building down and then construct a new building. And the reason for that is if you tear the building down and let's say you paid $2 million for it, then they're going to assume the land is worth that much. And the assessor will raise the taxes on everybody else on Palm Island. So they won't let you do it.
I think that's what they asked him, 9 million for that home.
Who did?
The last that it's listed right now for $8 or $9 million.
Oh yeah, but he didn't pay anywhere near that.
No.
I know. Well, the woman in Chicago is trying to sell the home that I was raised in,
Right.
and she was asking for $1.6 million. If you do the comps on the places in that area, they're probably around 80,000. Well, who's going to buy a house in that area for that much money?
Great for museums.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
the area is not good at all. No. Any other questions?
I have
Yep.
a question. How do you feel about rappers inheriting the gangster mantle and using Al Capone as a role model almost of sorts?
Well, you know, it's very interesting because when I started this process of writing this book, and I went out to try to get literary agents, that was one of the things that they said, that there's going to be a time where people don't know about Al Capone. Well, when I go out on Alcatraz and sign books, these little guys, 10, 11, 12, my God, they just go crazy that I'm a member of Al Capone's family. So, you know, I guess I can't complain. No, the statute of limitations or whatever that is hasn't run out of the Al Capone's name yet.
How long ago did your grandpa die?
74.
Oh, he was old.
Yeah, 74. I was 34 when he died, and so he really taught me.
You were closest with grandma, right? That was your closest.
Grandpa and my Aunt Matthew, she was like my mother, yeah. She taught me a lot.
She died older too?
She died, I was 45 when she died.
They lived pretty long.
They lived pretty long for having this wild life and drinking and smoking cigars.
Where they came from, sure. How old was Sonny?
Sonny died in 2001. So, you know, he's gone. He had 4 girls. Only 3 of them are left. I'm older than any of them.
What did they do? They still in Florida or no?
No, they've never been to Florida.
This kid's
California.
His wife?
Dead. She died of luck. Yes, you said Al's wife or Sonny's wife.
I meant Sonny's.
Sonny's wife died quite a while ago. Yeah.
Wow.
Are there any other questions?
The movie about the St. Valentine's Day Massacre with Jason Robards, what did you think about the depiction?
Well, you'll find out in my book that no Capone, no member of the outfit had anything to do with the Valentine's Day Massacre. I was told the real story about that, and I needed some proof before I put it into my book. I have a very strange quirk of fate, but my husband's uncle married the sister of the so-called mechanic that died in the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. And her brother used to come home complaining about things that were going on, you know, with Bugsy. And it turns out the police were stealing cases of alcohol off the back of Bugs Moran's trucks. And when Bugs Moran's soldiers said that they were going to complain to the police lieutenant, well, that's who did the evil deed and tried to make it look like Al Capone. If you understand Al Capone, if you understand his M.O., if Al Capone wanted to get Bugs Moran, he would have gotten Bugs Moran.
I did that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
I did that.
How long did you have the idea to write the book before you finally wrote it? I mean, you think
I started writing it. I started keeping a diary after my dad committed suicide. My dad was an only child. He committed suicide just before my 11th birthday. And, you know, I'm reading all these things again in the paper about the horrible Capone family. So I started to interview my relatives, and I asked them, and I kept a diary. And my grandfather was my biggest source of information, and then my Aunt Matthew really taught me a lot. But they made me promise I would not write the book until all the original family members had died. And the reason for that is, number one, my grandfather talking to me and telling me about the business, and I'm a girl, was unheard of in those days. They didn't do that. The second thing was they all practiced something called omerta. You don't know anything. You saw nothing. You don't talk to anybody. And he was telling me. But I think he knew that I can be the standard for the Capone family in the future to try to right some of the misinformation and give people the correct information. So he made me promise. I was having problems finding one of my uncles, and by the time I found out that he had passed, I came down with cancer. And this has been a very emotional experience for me. So I knew I needed to get well, strong, and healthy before I could take this on. I mean, I'm working very hard. And so I did that, and I kept my promise.
And then you just said you were an only child, but you're talking about all these uncles. So it's the other side of the family? I'm a little confused.
It's a very strange, usually Italian families have lots and lots and lots of children. It's not so in my family at all. 3 of my relatives adopted, you know, children from relatives on the other side. They didn't have any blood, you know, children of their own. It's quite an amazing story.
There's a good chapter in the book about that.
Okay.
Yeah, really interesting. Explains in detail.
Yeah. Yep.
I have a question. I'm just curious, what's your thoughts on the depiction of Al Capone in the new series Boardwalk Empire? What do you think about that show? Have you seen it?
That's a good question. Number one, I like the show. I think it's making people aware that that was a classy era in our times. The movie that came out in the 80s called The Untouchable was horrid. It was violent. It portrayed everybody at those times as being monsters. So it's good in that way. I'm starting to see kids dress up again. You're being educated that people were friends back then. They liked one another. They went out and drank good alcohol. They kept their word. You know, it was a classy time. Now, Stephen Graham has just gotten in touch with me. He portrays Al Capone. He wants to get together with me, and he wants to understand what my family was really like, and then he'll start to make some changes. And he wants to do a documentary with me this year.
I agree with Deirdre, by the way, that I enjoy Boardwalk Empire. I think it's done a lot to revive interest in these times. But I think that what we see here in Boardwalk Empire speaks exactly to why Al Capone was in the position he was. And don't forget, the violent times in America at this time wasn't simply around alcohol. Trade unionism also
Newspapers,
had to fight back violently against a government that was sending troops in to stop trade unionism. Well, what we see in the America of today is how Italians were viewed at that time. Again, I love the people involved. The historian comes here often. But what Boardwalk Empire suffers from is the one lone white savior model. What I refer to as the Kevin Costner effect. If you've seen Dances with Wolves, the Lakota, the greatest horse warriors of their day, are taught how to fight by Kevin Costner. Johnny Torrio in that show is depicted as a doddering old man. Al Capone is depicted as a psychopath out of control. So they invent a character, a young blonde-haired kid who's the secret son of an aristocrat, who teaches the olive-skinned Italians, even Rusty, the three geniuses who come out of Prohibition, Capone, and especially Ralph Capone. Al Capone is an amazing fellow, but Deirdre's grandfather was really the rock, the business
person in charge.
Right. That these olive-skinned people cannot accomplish what history tells us they've accomplished without inventing a white man to do it for them. And I think that that's the major problem with Boardwalk Empire.
I agree.
Any more questions? There is a 3-minute film, a wonderful little story behind Templeton Rye. Unfortunately, our theater is off-site. So in other words, we can't bring alcohol in there. So let's take about 10-15 minutes, enjoy your drinks, and there'll be drinks after. But at some point, we'll all go in the theater and watch a really nice show. I've seen it, and it's a beautiful little explanation of where Templeton Rye comes from. It's got a real texture to it. Thank you.